so much for joining me again today. I'm Jessica Kringle. Of course, most of you know me as Mrs. Claus, and we are counting down the days until Christmas this year by doing a different fun Christmas recipe for sweets and treats every single day. And so let's go to our Advent calendar and see what we are going to get to make today. It is December 5th, so we've got our little bell with the number 5 on it. Ooh, and we're making my mom's caramels. I know some of us say caramels and some of us say caramels. There's debate as to which way it is. I say caramels if they're hard and caramels if they're soft. These are really chewy and gotta be careful with your teeth when you eat these. If you would like to get the full recipes, you can find them at www.crafterscountdown.com, and you'll be able to get them there. So remember that the first thing that we do when we start to bake something is wash our hands. So I'm going to go ahead and get out the ingredients and wash my hands, and I will be right back with you. All right, for this one we're going to need a great big heavy metal pot because it's going to cook for a very long time on our stove. So I've washed my hands and gone ahead and I've put our sugar in there from the recipe. And I know that's a lot of sugar, a lot of sweets. And then we also need to go ahead and add some light corn syrup. So I'll tell you something funny while this pours. The recipe was written in my grandmother's handwriting, and when I looked at it, I thought it said 3 pounds. 3 pounds of syrup and 3 pounds of sugar, and I thought, that's way too much. That's insane. And so I talked to my mom because, my grandmother's not around to talk to anymore, and she explained to me that she thought that said that too, but we were just misreading it. So it's good to cook with your elders while they're here to cook with so that we can ask these questions when we don't quite understand the instructions. I know that my dad had some instructions on the fruitcake that I had to kind of interpret as well. All right, that is pretty well empty. And with this one, we could either eyeball about half of a container of this or go ahead and measure. And I think I'll measure because I don't want it to be wrong. But that should be about half that bottle. It's light corn syrup. Okay. The rest of that out of there. It's so thick and syrupy, huh? There we go. Okay. And then we need a full can of milk, and then our cream. They do sell smaller things of cream, but since we need it for other recipes, I went ahead and got the large one. So we will go ahead and pour our cream in there. Okay. This is so rich. These are so delicious. I've seen some recipes for baked apples, and I thought how amazing it would be to pour some of this while it's liquid, because once it hardens, you're not pouring it again. Pour some of this into one of those baked apples. That would be yummy to try sometime, because I do love caramel apples. All right, and then the last thing before we head to the stove is our butter. And I've said this on the other days too, so use a lot of butter in these recipes. I really think that butter is better. It's a more natural product, and also it's got more fat in it, so it's wonderful for baking these yummy treats. All right. And then we will stir this up, and we're going to go over to the stove and turn it on to low heat. So the other thing that you're going to need This is called a candy thermometer, and it's used for keeping the temperature on your candies when you're baking. So, and you don't want the end of it, the temperature part, to touch the bottom of the pan, but you definitely need it in your candy or liquid. So I've got that down just there. So let's go take this to the stove. It's very important that you keep this on low. You saw that we put cream and milk and butter in here, and you don't want it to scald. So here's your challenge. This needs to cook until it reaches hard ball stage, or 248 degrees. Now, if you didn't have one of these candy thermometers, or say you broke it and you couldn't run out and buy a new one, ask me how I know that happens, then what you can do is very carefully watch it, and as you get near 2 hours, you take a cup of cold water and you put a drop of the mixture into the water, and when it falls to the bottom, it will form either a hard ball or a soft ball, and you'll know when it reaches the hard ball stage that you've cooked it long enough. So this I will need to stir constantly until it is completely mixed and all of the butter is melted, and then I only need to stir it occasionally. But I'm going to keep working here in the kitchen so that I make sure I keep a close watch on it. So you don't want to leave the kitchen area, but you don't have to stand here, thank goodness, and stir it for the whole 2 hours. So I'm going to go ahead and take care of this. You can come back and join me when we're closer to done, okay? Took a little bit longer than 2 hours. So what I did was I slowly brought the heat up just a little bit and made sure that I stirred it more often to make sure that it didn't burn. Okay, so I'm going to set this aside. Okay, now we'll remove this from the heat. And remember that we don't add the vanilla until we remove it from the heat, because if it's still boiling, it will just boil the flavor right off of it. So go ahead and add our vanilla now. Oh, that smells wonderful. It looks yummy too. Sizzling that vanilla, it's hot. Do make sure that if you're a little person, you need to leave this part to be bigger people. Alright, and then I have taken a baking sheet. You need a full-sized baking sheet, and I put a piece of parchment in it. Now what I'm going to do is pour this into the baking pan, and it will smear out. This is very, very, very hot. Don't want to touch it. that's in the pan, and it has made this pan very hot. We're going to go ahead and let this cool and harden, okay? We'll be back in a little bit. All right, so this is nice and cool and set. So this is the super fun part. What you need is a hammer. I borrowed this from Santa's workshop. I did clean it really well, but you know, just to make sure that it's super clean, I put some aluminum foil over the end of it. And then you just whack. Isn't that fun? Take out your Christmas aggressions. And that cuts your caramels into these wonderful little pieces. And then you take some waxed paper. You put your caramel on the edge of the waxed paper. Give it a couple of rolls and twirls. And then you grab it in your hands. And you twist your hands in opposite directions. And that seals your little candy. Now, if you want to make it more decorative, especially if these are going to be gifts, then you can certainly tie some ribbon around these in different colors. Now, these are really hard. Remember, we cooked them to hard ball, and so those of us who are seasoned a little bit need to be careful of any dental work we've got going on there. So be very careful. If you've got a loose tooth or all you want for Christmas are your 2 front teeth, then you also may have a little bit of a hard time eating these, but you can suck on them. They're really good. But you saw how hard they were. If they do that with a hammer, then imagine what they'll do to your teeth. But they're so yummy. All right, and then with a curling ribbon, all you do is take some scissors. These are really sharp. Sometimes it's easier to use not as sharp scissors, because first of all, you don't want to cut your finger, and second of all, you don't want to cut the ribbon. Sometimes these will shear the ribbon off a little bit. And there we go. And now I get to do the rest of this. If some of the pieces are really large like this, then you can just give them a couple more taps with your hammer. You might want to wear some goggles or something, or your glasses, to make sure that pieces don't fly up. If it's not breaking really well, then sometimes, you know, I put the parchment paper underneath here. You can give it a little lift, and then when you hammer it, then it breaks into a piece, and then you can set that on an uneven surface like the other part of the caramel, and give it a couple more whacks. All right, well, I am going to pop one of these in my mouth while I wrap up the rest of these to put into a little gift basket for the elves. Thanks so much for joining me. I hope you'll come back tomorrow as we continue to count down the days of Christmas with a different sweet and treat recipe each day. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.